Hello everyone, it's Cassie and welcome back for another video here on my YouTube channel. Today we are making 5 cards with the one kit. This is the Pink and Main April 2021 kit and it is called In the Garden, and as far as I know it is still available. So let's jump into what we're making. I've pulled out an array of inks from my stash. I'm using some Hurley Create inks, the ones that I thought would match the kit the best. And we're going to start off by doing some stamping. The stamping is going to be relatively the same for the entire 5 cards that I'm making. So I'm going to show you in real time what we're doing here. These are solid stamps and I love to do rock and roll. I'm not going to do it for all the images, but I wanted to show you how I do it. I start with my lightest color, in this case that is some Over the Moon, and then we're going to bring in a darker color, and this is Slippery When Wet. And what you'll notice is all I did was take my stamp and roll the edges around that darker ink. Don't worry about your lighter ink getting into that darker ink. It's not going to contaminate it. If you did it the other way around, it would, but because we went light to dark, it's not a concern. So I'm going to do that for a lot of the stamping that I do, so I won't show you all of it, but I just wanted to make sure you saw how I stamped that flower, and a lot of the others will be the same. For some of the other images, we're just going to do some straight stamping, but easy peasy. For our first card, I did want to make some mini slimline cards. When I see pattern paper, I want to jump into mini slimline. So mini slimline, if you're new to that, is basically the card folded up is 3 inches by 6 inches. So your card base would be 6 inches by 6 inches. And so it's perfect for pattern paper. I took one of the patterns and cut it right in half, so it's 3 inches by 6 inches for each of those pieces. And then this piece I cut down about 1/4 inch, so it's like 2 3/4, and then I'm cutting that into thirds and making those 1 3/4 for each of these little panels. You'll see why we did it that way when I start assembling the card. So there's all of our stamping. I took the matching dies. I'm going to tack those down and run that through my die cutting machine for all of the images we need for these 2 cards. And they're going to be the same. I guess I just figured since I was doing that, might as well make 2. And as I said, the base is 6 by 6. So I actually like to take scrapbook paper, which measures 12 by 12. You can get 4 mini slimline cards out of some 12 by 12 paper. So yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start assembling our flowers. I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue. I'll stick the pot down at the bottom of this one. I think that was meant to be a sprout, but I love how it looks with the flower on top and the leaves on the sides. And then now I'm going to start attaching my little pattern paper pieces to my panel. And I'm using my glass mat to sort of line that up, but I'm mostly just eyeballing this. So it is what it is, and the patterns are enough to kind of break up your eye a little bit so that if it isn't perfect, you really can't tell. The next thing I'm going to do is run a circle die over the top of some of that glitter cardstock that came in the kit. It's so pretty, and it matches so beautifully. That's, like I've said before, one of the things I love about Pink and Main kits, is that they match really, really nicely together. We'll glue that down. Yes, I have a little bit hanging off, but I'm going to take care of that later. Our sentiment, we're going to stamp onto some more white cardstock, and I'm just going to stamp that at the very top. I need 2 of them, and I used some blackout ink by Ink on 3. Now I'm going to trim those sentiments down, just putting that into my guillotine trimmer, lining that up, and then when I have those cut apart, I'm going to cut a fishtail banner on the one end, and I'm eyeballing this as well, but you just want to cut sort of into the center from each side. And just do a little practicing. Sometimes that helps as well. But you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect, because mine never are. All right, I'll glue down my sentiment, lining that up a little bit with my flower. I did put some foam tape on the back of my flowers, so I'll peel off those release papers so that I can stick that down. Foam tape, I don't always use it, but it does add a little bit of interest from time to time. And this may be one of the few cards I actually put some of that foam tape on. And now we'll trim off the excess from our circle just using our guillotine trimmer. And then this panel will be ready to adhere to our card base. I did do some stamping on the inside. I just stamped another sentiment on the inside, but I don't show you that. So now that all those two cards are put together, we're going to grab out those glitter enamel dots that came in the kit that match so perfectly, and we are going to adhere those down. I'm using my paper piercer because it's just easier to pick them up that way, and then I can adhere those down. So we'll just put 3 on each one, and that's going to finish off our 2 mini slimline cards. Love how those turned out. For card number 2, we are going to bring in that gorgeous embossing folder. So I'm going to cut out a circle just using one of my dies, and then we are going to emboss that. Now just follow the instructions on your die cutting machine for how you should emboss, you know, whatever sandwich you need. And then, yeah, I'm just going to run this through my die cutting machine, and then we'll have this absolutely beautiful embossed circle. I love it so much, and it looks beautiful the way it is when it comes out. But I'm going to enhance that a little bit just by taking one of my ink pads. I think I'm going to be using the Over the Moon ink pad. And I'm going to very lightly just rub it right over the top of those flowers. It'll just make those flowers pop a little bit. I'm not going heavy-handed, just kind of lightly rubbing it. And check that out. It gives it a kind of a distressed look, and it really makes those flowers pop. All right, for our card base, we're making this an A2 size card. So this was cut down to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches and scored at 4.25. This is going to be a top folding A2 size card. And I do have some pattern paper that I cut down just a little bit smaller than the front of that A2 size card. And now we are going to do a little bit more stamping. I just wanted to show you, with all of them, it isn't quite as easy as doing a rounded image. It's very, it is easy to do, but the rounded images are always so much easier. So I start with my lightest color, which was the Minty Fresh, and I bring in the Tropical Tango. And so I'm just having to kind of move that around that ink pad a little bit. It looks like I'm stamping straight down, but as you can see, the color is very isolated to just the edges. And then I did decide, instead of using those, I'll use them on a different card. I wanted just that, the traffic cone color. So I'm going to cut those all out. And I'm even going to use that yellowy one kind of in the inside of my card. I take out some of the glitter tape. This stuff is so cool and beautiful. I cut that down, and then I'm going to start attaching the pieces to the front of my panel, just using some more liquid glue. So I'll attach this down, and then my next step would be to peel off the release paper of this glitter tape. I love that it is self-adhesive. And then I'll use my glass mat to try and line that up and make sure that it's nice and straight as I put that down. I'm also using the pattern on the back of the paper. That helps as well. And then I can wrap the edges of the tape around. So I wanted to also show you that when you don't have a lot of colors, you can still do the rock and roll technique. What I did is I stamped the image. And then I stamped it off once and then rock and rolled back on the same color. So I have a lighter version in the inside of that flower, as you can see. So just use what you have. If you have extra colors, cool, but if not, it can be done with just one color. And I do like how that looks. I had stamped out the sentiment. We're just attaching everything down using some liquid glue. This will be a fairly low profile card. So it'll be an easy mailer. And then I'll attach this down to my card base. But I do want to add a few embellishments. So I'm going to pull out the sequins that came in the kit, and I'll just put those into a little tray. And then I'm actually going to be fairly liberal. You can't see all of them. If you were holding the card, you could, but it's a fairly busy background. So I do have quite a few sequins on that back. And then I'm going to take this extra boot, put that on the inside, because I do like to decorate the insides of my cards, and then stamp another sentiment on the inside. And then that's going to finish off card number 2. Super happy with how that one turned out as well. For card number 3, I decided I wanted to make a slimline, and I did want to use patterned paper on that, so I do cut that down. But my card base measures 7 inches by 8.5 inches and is scored at 3.5 inches. And then, so that's going to be just that's my typical slimline. But like I said, I wanted to add pattern paper, so the easiest way to do this, since these are 6 by 6, is to grab a pattern that is easily continued. So I grabbed the 2 pieces that were matching, and then I trimmed them down to be perfectly the same. So I'm going to attach the one to the one side, and then I'll put some glue on the other piece and attach it down, just matching up those lines. There will be a seam, obviously, but if you do it right, you can kind of not really see it, to be honest with you. If you're looking for it, you'll see it, but otherwise it's not there. And then I'm going to trim off the excess just using my guillotine trimmer, or you could use your scissors or whatever you have. But then there you go. I do want to pull in this beautiful slimline die from Pink and Main, so I'm going to cut this one down. This is the smaller of the panels, and I want to pull in that stencil that came in the kit. So I'm going to pull in the stencil, And I'm also going to pull in some Distress Oxide spray in the color Scattered Straw. So I'm just going to shake that up like a bell, stick this inside of my makeshift splatter box, line that up in there, and then spray that through. These Distress Oxide sprays look so pretty on dark cardstock. They just stand out so nicely. They look good on white cardstock too, but when I pull this away, what you see there, how that dries, I mean, it'll dry back just a little, but barely, and it looks so nice. I have enough spray on this stencil that I don't want to waste it, so I'm just going to stick that down onto some white cardstock and just kind of blot that with a microfiber cloth, pull it away, and then I'll have a piece that I can use for something later. I don't use it on any cards today, but you could. So look at that panel. Isn't that so cool? It's stitched because that's what this die will do, and it also has those two corners that are rounded. I went ahead and stamped out all of my images and die cut those out, and I even die cut this little piece that has the saying, "There is always hope." That came in the die set as well. So I'm going to glue this down to some more of that white cardstock because I want to make sure that that really stands out. And then I'll just trim away any of that excess, and then we'll be left with this nice piece that has that white showing through. I'll attach down my panel to my card base, and then I'm going to try to arrange pieces, kind of play around with it to see how I want stuff. But I did stamp out quite a few things. I'm going to take a little bit more of that glitter tape, trim that down so that will fit the whole front of this Slimline, and line that up on my glass mat to do so. And then I will trim off the excess with my scissors. And this is where I'll start thinking about how I want to lay things out. And this is the fun part. You just create this fun little scene. So I'll put down my boots. Those are the boots I stamped earlier. And then I have a hat. I also have a glove. I have a watering can. I have little pieces for the tools. And I also have lots of leaves. And so I'm just sticking the sentiment down to see where I want to place pieces. And I'm using just my liquid glue to adhere everything down. I will pull in some foam tape for my sentiment just so that that stands out just a little bit more. But this is otherwise going to be a fairly easy mailer also. I mean, there's a lot of elements on it, but this is one of the fun things about Slimline is there's lots of real estate here to work with and really, get those juices flowing as far as creativity and how you want to put things on there. And I really do enjoy this process. If that much space really intimidates you, that's where the mini Slimline comes in super handy. So love them both. And then I'm just going to take these leaves, I stamped plenty of those, and I'm going to just kind of stick those in various spots so that those will stick out and really make that green pop a little bit more. But everything I used, I am going to have linked down in the description box down below. So if there's anything that you're interested in, it will be linked down below. But otherwise, yeah, go through your stash of stuff and just kind of play. You can always make some fun scenes this way. All right, I put some foam tape on the back of our sentiment, so I peeled off their release paper, and then I'll stick the sentiment down. Love that. There is always hope. Can't stop there. I do need to bring in some of those glitter enamel dots because why not, right? And so I'll just put a few of those down. I don't go too crazy. I think I put a total of maybe 6 down on the front of this card, but it is a Slimline, so there's plenty of spots to put it down. And then I guess I put 7. And then I decide that I want to do something on the inside. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment. And then once that sentiment is stamped, that will finish off card number 3. Another fun one. For card number 4, I'm going to bring in that gorgeous paper that, I just love it. It has those dots on it. It's the Tahitian Princess. And I just love this paper. It's so pretty. And so I found one of the patterns that matched in it, and I'm going to work with that pattern because I want to do this on a diagonal. So what I'm doing is I'm going to put this in my guillotine trimmer and trim down along that diagonal. This will allow me to attach my paper at a diagonal. And no, nothing's cut down yet. I figured this was the easiest way to do it rather than trying to trim first. We will just put down the glue, and then we'll put down the paper and we'll trim around that. So it's perfect. And then I also want a strip of this yellow dot paper. to really bring out the dots, or not the dots, but the yellow stripe in that plaid paper. And I'll attach this down with a little bit more of that liquid glue. And in the meantime, all this is drying. So once that is pretty good and dry, so I'm not concerned about it moving, I'll bring in my guillotine trimmer, and this is where I'll trim off all of that excess. So it might seem like you're being a little bit wasteful, but you probably would be anyway because you're trimming it down and you may not do it perfectly. So this is just one of those ways to do it. And then close it up, trim off that excess, and you can save those scraps for another card if you'd like as well. But look at that, now it's on a diagonal. I have a piece of white cardstock that I've trimmed down, and I'm just going to take that Tropical Tango right to the bottom. I want some grounding for where I attached down my images, and once again I stamped all of these out ahead of time and die cut them. So we've got our watering can, we have 3 of these little yellow flowers and 3 leaves, and also a little bit of dirt. The dirt mostly gets covered, but I think that's so cute that you can add dirt to the watering can, or you can add dirt to the little pot. You can also add some water sprinkles coming out of the watering can if you wanted to. There are lots of little options for this fun stamp set. Alright, I'm attaching just those pieces down, just kind of attaching them how I think it would look pretty if it were a flower arrangement. Because how fun would that be to have flowers in an old watering can? Make that like your pot. I've seen people use various things for pots, and I just think it's always so cool when you use something that's a little less traditional. Alright, I like that, but I've decided I want to add some of that over the moon to the edges at the top. That'll frame it a little bit more, and then we'll attach this down with some more of that liquid glue. I already have a sentiment stamped out, so we're going to attach that down right below. And then once that's attached, I'm going to pull out those enamel dots again, and we'll use the darker blue on there, the darker turquoise ones, because I thought this would pop. So we'll put 3 over here. And then I'm going to use 2 on the lower right hand side, so it'll be like there's 5 on there. Kind of gives that rule of odds. And then once those are on there, that's going to finish off card number 4. Happy with this one too. I love those colors. For our final card today, I'm going to make another A5s. I'm cutting down this pattern paper to 4 inches by 5.5 inches, so there will be a little bit of a border on the right and left hand side. I'm going to take the scrap of that, and I like how they look together, so I'm going to cut a flag banner in the very bottom part of that, and then we'll attach that down with a little bit of liquid glue. I want to go ahead and apologize now. I lost the footage of me making the rest of the card, but as you can see, I have flowers all set aside, and I have leaves as well. I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of those flowers, and then I will attach those down in a little bit. But my card base was cut to, again, 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches and scored at 4 1/4. And then I'm going to trim off that excess on my panel, and once that is trimmed down, I'll glue this down to my card base using that same liquid glue. And again, there'll be a little bit of a border on the left and right hand side. So you're going to see the finished card here in just a second. But yes, foam tape on the back of those flowers. I attach down the leaves, and then we have a sentiment stamped as well. Alright, so that finishes off our 5 cards for today. Let's go ahead and take a look at the cards that I did make today. I would love to know which one was your favorite. If you did have a favorite, go ahead and leave that down in the comment section down below. Yeah, and if you like this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thanks for all of the love and support that you guys give. You guys are really incredible. I know I always say that, but I do appreciate you. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.